Let's go Brian in Georgia.
All right.
Brian, you're live with Eric and V. What would you like to talk about today?
Hey guys, how y'all doing today?
Doing good. Hanging in there.
Oh, and just as an aside, so people know, I'm not exactly clear on the framing of the shot. So if I look like if I'm leaning in front of V, I'm not trying to be a jerk here. I'm just I'm not sure about the framing of the shot. So
yeah, I've got an eye on the shot. So if I'm going like that,
yeah, it's because V's actually correcting my position.
We're good.
Yeah, but anyway, what did you want to talk about?
Basically, I'm interested to know, why so many people tie their beliefs to their emotions, and how do you get past that to have a conversation?
Oh, that is a good question. Wow, why do they tie emotions to beliefs? That actually would be a very interesting video. I may actually have to do one exactly with that in mind.
I think that a lot of people view their identities in their beliefs. They think I am what I believe. And I've seen that enough that is kind of my assumption more often than not when it comes to people in that place, is that they equate their ideas with who they are.
Right. I think it must be like just a byproduct of consciousness and being a conscious person to have the informational side and then also tie that to identity and who you are. And like, again, our brains are not wired to work that way. So we're just all trying to figure this out. And of course, emotion is going to come into it because initially emotion was used as a catalyst to take an action in a specific way. So I'm feeling scared because there's a tiger in the grass. That fear, that emotion is going to help me get away faster and survive. And so it makes sense that our brains might swap out there's a tiger in the grass to there's a God or there isn't a God, and react in the same way with those same emotions. And this is just me spitballing. I would need to read some real research on this topic, but it's a really good question. I think, what's the, is it the bounce back effect? What is it?
Backfire.
Backfire effect, right. So the second part of your question, how do we keep people from reacting emotionally to information they might not like or might conflict with their own beliefs, is to make sure that you're aware of the backfire effect and compensate for it. So usually what we will see, and this happens a lot online, this is why online spheres are so toxic a lot of the time, people jump in with, well, you're wrong, and that makes you hold tighter instead of let go. So a good way to combat that is instead of saying, you're wrong, I think you're stupid, or you're wrong, you're clearly uneducated, or, you know, whatever that instinct might be to tell someone, instead step back and approach it more in a street epistemology way, I would say, and say, well, how do you know that? That's an interesting thought. Let's follow that through to its logical conclusion. And that's not going to get rid of the emotional component, right? People are still ultimately going to reach that point where their emotional reaction is too uncomfortable for them to continue the conversation, especially if you're talking about a big concept, right? Like religion, like politics. But the goal is to get them as far as possible before that emotional response kicks in. And I see that in my experience, the street epistemology approach and forming things like a conversation help get you farther than just coming right out and saying, well, that's a wrong idea. You're stupid.
Yeah. And it could be that they're just going to react that way with you every time because it's their relationship with you, and it might need to be somewhere else.
Yeah.
Often needing to engage with these ideas from different directions, right? I think that shows like this are important because this gives people an opportunity to engage with these ideas without feeling like they're personally having to have the conversation. And because of that, there's less of a backfire effect sometimes. And so just being you, living those things and over time exemplifying the behaviors that you want to see.
Okay. I hate to be wrong, but even worse, I'd hate being adamantly wrong. So I always assume that I could be wrong.
That's a good policy.
I'd like to help. Yeah, but I would appreciate somebody correcting me if I'm wrong. So it's just hard for me to comprehend why everybody else doesn't feel the same way.
Right. And there's also that component that you brought up earlier, which is that we need to rehabilitate the term "I don't know," right? In that phrase, because especially in the US, I feel, and this could be more broad, more global, but I don't like speaking about beyond my own culture. There's this idea that you have to know or you are somehow lesser. And knowing things is valued more than not knowing things, and being right is considered somehow a more moral thing to be than being wrong, even though I know very many moral people who are very wrong about very many things. And I also know people who are technically right on a lot of things, but are horrible people. So for me, I would say, in addition to talking to the individual, embody a culture that prompts this kind of conversation and that embodies that, oh, if I'm wrong, I want to know so I can adjust my thinking, and making it not a big deal, making it not an ethical or a moral consideration. It is something that you prefer to be, because the world works better when we know true things.
And you're super not alone in this. It really does need to be rehabilitated. In the live chat, somebody had painted this scene where a school teacher is saying, "Does anyone have the answer?" And child Eric is sitting in the back going, "Ooh, ooh, ooh. Yes, Eric, I don't know." The funny thing is after having worked in schools, I wish more kids did that. So I knew that I needed to continue to go on to make sure that they did learn, because that's my fucking responsibility. So it's okay.
Well, let me ask you this. I'm sorry, I didn't know you were done.
No, go ahead.
Well, something V said just a moment ago reminded me that as far as identifying yourself with a position, does it seem like that's kind of the same thing as identifying yourself with like your favorite sports team, your favorite, brand of, tennis shoes, or just kind of like a tribalism thing? Is that why it's so emotional?
Well,
I think there's probably a correlation there. I think on a deeper level, there's an instinct to tie yourself to what you think, because you are in your head, ultimately. You live there, that is you. But also, I think that we are constantly trying to find ways to build families and tribes and groups of people who we feel safe with, because that is an instinct that we have inherited. And back then it was super easy, right? You were born into a space, you lived with the people in that space, you died there, your children lived there. Like, it was a very self-sustaining thing because of lack of ability to travel and all of this. So that was kind of how things were. And now that we have the ability to talk to anybody we could possibly imagine on the internet, now that we are constantly seeing other types of people portrayed to us in the media, and we live in a global culture where people come from all over, we still find ways to do that. And we say, okay, well, I can't be friends with everyone, so I'm going to pick my friends based on sports, or based on my religion, or based on, my homeowners association, or, whatever it is
Hobbies.
that looks like. You are finding your tribe, and that can be very useful, and that can be very helpful in some instances. But when you limit yourself to that group of people and that kind of thinking, that's when we come into that kind of self-sustaining worldview that could very easily take a left turn from reality.
Yeah. If you're searching for a better way to define identity, instead of defining yourself as your thoughts or your opinions, define yourself as the collection of stories that you tell yourself about yourself. I think that is a better definition for identity.
Mm-hmm. I like that.
Yeah, because it can change, and it's a fun thing to explore.
Let me run this last thing by you.
Sure.
As far as getting past the emotional aspect of it, when you're talking to somebody who may feel like or see you as the other side, or not in my particular group because you have a different opinion or see things differently, do you think it might help if you found common ground and kind of situated yourself as the in group on some of their topics?
I think that's a tactic that we try to do on the show when we say, hey, we've been there. Hey, we were also religious. We know how to talk the talk. We know the lingo. We understand what you're saying. That can very much help. But they'll pick up on it if it's not genuine. Right. And if you're trying to do that in a way that is not honest, that's going to ultimately hinder you. But yeah, if you can find common ground on a thing and kind of build from there, I think that's always a good tactic, no matter what the conversation's about.
Or even if you don't necessarily have it in common, but just showing that you understand them. That's like just leading with an affirmation, maybe restating what they said back to them in different ways so that they go, oh, they were listening to me. Oh, I feel listened to. I feel seen. You know, it opens that up.
Or, and this can double in your conversation about, you know, oh, tell me more about that. If you act actually interested in something that maybe you are very unfamiliar with and you don't share with them, but you're honestly intrigued by it and you let them know that. And you're like, oh, that is really fascinating. Tell me more. That is really interesting. I haven't heard that before. So it can go either way. It can be, oh, yes, I'm also there with you. Here's common ground. Or it can be, I'm actually really excited to learn something new. Let's foster this idea of sharing new ideas with each other. So yeah, there are many different ways to do it. And there's not a one size fits all. It's going to depend on the person. It's going to depend on your relationship with them and where you are and what their day was like. But having these tools at your disposal is going to help you immeasurably when having hard conversations. So great questions. And I'm going to think about the tying emotions to facts and identity for a video, because that sounds very interesting to me.
Cheers.
Thanks, Brian.
Hey, thank you for calling in, man.
All right. Thank you, guys. Y'all take care.
You too.
You too.
All right. I think it's time to thank those patrons.
All right, let's do it.
All right. So if you want to support us, you can go to patreon.com/talkheathen-to-me. It's patreon.com/talkheathen-to-me. Every donation helps. This is a nonprofit that is putting these shows on, and it is taking a lot to run things remotely. And if you like what you do and you want to support us, that is definitely a way to do it. Our top 5 patrons this week are Eric Tweet, who we got a message from.
Yes, that was amazing.
And so it turns out that is their name. They're not telling me to tweet, though I have been tweeting.
Yes.
Yeah, we've been watching a lot of Star Trek. By the way, just as an aside, I hate the Borg. I don't think they're scary. I think that it looks like a tornado hit an AutoZone and like a Michaels, craft supply, and everybody's just got tubes glued to their faces. They're terrible. They're terrible. Anyway, let's move on. Let's thank our top 5 patrons. We got Eric Tweet, Desert Heathen, Bethany P, Jay Friedman, Ward Knipling, and this week, it is one of those days.
It's a year-long day.
Yeah.
We've got Balaam's donkey.
All right. Thank you so much for your support. Actually, Balaam's donkey is tied for 6th place with your favorite,
Dingleberry Jackson.
Yeah.
Honestly, I want them to team up and do like a punk goth band type thing. Maybe
Balaam's
like a
donkey.
ska thing, like Balaam's donkey and Dingleberry Jackson at the Met or some shit.
I could kind of see it.
It would work.
I All right. I think it would be a folk punk band.
Okay, I can see that.
Yeah.
I can see that working. All right.